I dare say that anyone familiar with this character is already 30 years old. Fear the Walking Dead, as a spin-off of The Walking Dead, unfolds its story in the same time and space. Friends who have watched The Walking Dead naturally know that Rick's army is like a group of killing gods, each member possessing extraordinary combat capabilities. In contrast, Fear the Walking Dead reflects more on the survival norms of ordinary people in the apocalypse. Starting from this episode, Fear the Walking Dead introduces a new main character, which is Morgan from Rick's army. After Rick and his team successfully take over the kingdom, Morgan becomes disillusioned with the deceit among humans. He believes that people should love each other rather than losing humanity in the apocalypse. He rejects the persuasions of Rick and others, leaves the kingdom alone, and actively avoids other survival groups. One night, as Morgan prepares to rest in a tent, he is unexpectedly knocked unconscious. When he wakes up, someone is rummaging through his backpack. Morgan was about to move when a gun was pressed against his head. Clearly, such incidents are commonplace in the apocalypse. Morgan says, "Take what you want, and I'll leave this place." However, Leland, the assailant, has no intention of letting Morgan go. At that moment, a gunshot rang out and the gun in Leland's hand was knocked to the ground. From a distance, a man with a gun approaches, and it turns out to be John, who had a brief encounter with Morgan before. John is a sharpshooter, able to hit the thug's gun from a considerable distance. John wanted to save Morgan, but he didn't expect to get himself involved. They thought they would be killed here today. The sound of a car came from the distance. An armored car drove up with a woman named Althea sitting on it. Althea sees Morgan and John, expressing her fondness for newcomers and insisting on taking them with her. The group looked scared of the woman, but to save face, they refused. Until... well, this is a mobile fortress that can be attacked and defended. And so, Morgan and John board the armored war vehicle. After reaching a location, Althea says, "Get off. Who's coming first?" This startles John, who immediately points his gun at Althea. Later, they learn that Althea was a journalist before the apocalypse, and now she just wants to record the stories of survivors through video, preserving and passing down each one. That's why Althea likes to meet strangers and collect their stories. Morgan was about to head out on his own after being interviewed by Althea. However, Leland and his group find them, with the intention of seizing the armored vehicle. John's gun has already been taken from him, and they make Morgan raise his hands and surrender his stick. At this critical moment, John suddenly attacks. Morgan understands the signal. John retrieves his gun, and the familiar feeling returns. Althea, who had heard the shots, took advantage of Leland's confusion to climb into her armored car. Althea tries to hit the weapon switch in the car, but Leland grabs her. Morgan knocked down a man with a single blow, then used the truck to climb onto the roof because there was another person up there relentlessly shooting at John. John pulls open a door to avoid the bullets, but there are zombies inside. Leland climbs into the armored car but finds he doesn't have the key. Althea, with a triumphant look, waved the keys and threw them 50 meters away. In a fit of frustration, Leland shouted angrily and ran towards where the keys landed. While zombies gradually spread around, Leland started to panic, wanting only to find the keys and escape. However, when he was lost in his misery, the zombies also rushed towards him. Fortunately, the rooftop members shot the zombies just in time. Morgan finally approached the man on the roof, but he quickly noticed Morgan and shot him in the leg. Morgan had to take cover temporarily behind an obstacle. After firing several shots, the man nervously changed his magazine. Morgan, resolute, rushed forward. In close combat, Morgan was invincible, and the man couldn't defend himself. Just as Morgan knocked the man down, zombies from below began to gather. Seeing that the man was about to be overwhelmed by zombies, Morgan quickly pulled the man up. The subsequent scene is undoubtedly predictable. The man continued to fight with Morgan. A bear hug and they crashed through the rooftop, falling to the ground floor, where countless zombies awaited. The man was the first to be caught by the zombies and began to be devoured. Morgan can only defend himself, but he can't save him. In the midst of struggling with a zombie, Morgan discovered that this particular one had a hand grenade. Morgan pulled the ring and pushed the zombies with him. He rushed to hide in the bathroom bathtub. The explosion shattered the windows, but Morgan survived. Althea and John were unharmed as well. Just as Althea was about to come to the car, the door jolted her straight to the ground. It was Leland, who found the keys but realized he couldn't start the armored vehicle. Althea mocked Leland, revealing that the keys were for a storage box. Leland, furious and humiliated, lifted Althea. Luckily, a distant John hits Leland with a single shot. Althea rolls under the car. Leland was then devoured by zombies. Althea wasted no time and got into the car. John and Morgan, forced by zombies, ended up on the roof. With a commanding shout from Althea, they finally witnessed the firepower of the mobile fortress, which cleared all the zombies in just a few seconds. After this incident, they officially became friends. Morgan, looking at the white flag inside the car, couldn't help but ask about the significance of the numbers on it. Althea simply mentioned that there are often appearances in the vicinity, and the surroundings are full of enclosed zombies. Due to his leg injury, Morgan had no choice but to join them on the road. At that moment, a swaying figure appeared in the middle of the road. They take their weapons, check the perimeter, and move in for a closer look. Althea approached her cautiously.
What happened?
This woman was Alicia.
There are bad people here.
Where? Drop it! Hey! Drop it! Drop it! Drop it! Okay. Drop it!
They were the likes of Alicia and Nick who had left the base. The destruction of the base and Madison's death fueled deep hatred in them towards that group. They gave that group a name, the Vultures. Alicia and the others believed that the armored vehicle was associated with the Vultures, so they set up a trap to intercept it. Morgan explained that they were not those kinds of people. However, Luciana found the white flag on their vehicle, which was unmistakably the symbol of the Vultures. Althea claimed they just picked it up from a camp they passed by. Alicia realized they were not part of the Vultures.
All right. Show us where you found it.
Althea, being a journalist, was curious about the stories of these people and initiated a conversation. She deliberately provoked Nick, and as Nick approached her, a standoff ensued on the vehicle.
Drop it!
Drop it! Hey! Drop it!
Althea instructed Luciana to pull over immediately, but a small group of zombies appeared ahead. Taking advantage of Althea's distracted attention, Nick disarmed her. However, in the struggle, Nick was pushed into the driver's cabin, causing the vehicle to veer uncontrollably towards the guardrail. Ultimately, the vehicle slid about 7 to 8 meters down a slope and crashed heavily into abandoned tree trunks. The loud impact naturally attracted zombies on the road, and Nick was left dazed. During this chaos, Alicia and the others were subdued, including Victor and Luciana in the driver's cabin. When Nick woke up again, there were many zombie corpses around him. Victor and the others were kneeling in front of him in a neat row. After Althea's examination, it was discovered that the vehicle's wheels were almost stuck, making it impossible to drive away. They couldn't abandon the armored vehicle, so the only option was to find a tow truck. Luciana claimed she knew where to find one but requested to be untied first. Althea untied them, but Nick was kept tied up as a hostage. Since Morgan had a leg injury, he stayed behind to guard Nick while the others went out to search for a tow truck. Morgan and Nick got along quite well during this time. Nick, feeling hungry, asked Morgan to untie him for some food. Morgan is a man who believes in humanity, so he used a knife to untie Nick, and put the knife next to him. Nick looked at the knife a bit frozen. Is not afraid of me to get a weapon? Nick's mind also has 10,000 question marks. With no other choice, Nick decided to be friends with Morgan in a different way. Morgan, bored, went to exercise on the road. At that moment, Morgan saw a car approaching in the distance and quickly rushed towards it. Revealing oneself in the post-apocalyptic world was not always a good idea. People could be capable of anything. Morgan closed the car door, urging Nick to crouch down. Curious, Nick watched a blue sports car roaring past on the road. He instantly became furious, never forgetting that car for the rest of his life. Morgan prevented Nick from going out and exposing himself. Nick was now focused on avenging his mother, and they began to wrestle inside the car. Nick pushed Morgan down and accidentally pressed on the car horn, creating a continuous blaring sound. Armed with a hammer, Nick rushed out to find the car. When he reached the road, the car had disappeared. In the end, Nick tracked it down to an area with blue flowers, a place he had visited with his mother. At that moment, several zombies approached Nick. When Nick was pounced by the zombies, The hammer could not be pulled out. Just as Nick was about to be overwhelmed by zombies, Morgan arrived and used a stick to dispatch the zombies. Now, they had no choice but to travel together in search of a safe place. As the honking of the car had attracted many zombies, Madison chose to die with the zombies to save her children. The remaining 4, overwhelmed by grief, vowed to seek revenge on the vultures. To evade zombies, Nick and Morgan headed towards a small town. They hid in a pharmacy where Morgan changed the gauze on his leg. Although he doesn't know what Nick has against the vultures, Morgan advises Nick that this post-apocalyptic world needs peace and shouldn't create more killings. However, the vendetta for the murder of Nick's mother couldn't be easily pacified with mere words. Alicia and the others, having found a tow truck, became concerned upon seeing the armored vehicle surrounded by zombies. John points to an arrow on the ground that must be Morgan's mark. They were about to head down the road to find Morgan and the others, but Althea is determined not to go. The camera in the armored car is her life. In the end, Alicia and Victor decided to stay and help Althea, while Luciana joined John in the search for Nick. Presently, Alicia and Victor displayed no trace of their former gentleness and timidity. Determination marked their faces. They made a deal. Alicia and Victor would help Althea get the car, and Althea would lead them to the vultures and film them throughout. They divide up the work. Alicia takes the weapon and the rope, and she goes through the zombies and attaches it to the car. Alicia then makes a noise to attract the zombies, and the zombies' attention is completely drawn to her. Alicia wasn't the same little girl she was back then. Now she killed zombies calmly. There are a lot of zombies, but Althea is covering Alicia with her rifle. After the zombies were attracted to her, Alicia got under the car and fixed the unhooked hook, then crawled towards the front of the car and circled around to the driver's side. Witnessing Alicia emerge unharmed, they breathed a sigh of relief. Victor started the tow truck, and the armored vehicle began to move slowly. Meanwhile, Morgan patrolled the town and spotted the blue car along with the vulture's leader, Ennis. It was this guy who caused Nick's mother to lose her life. Ennis looks at Morgan strangely. Morgan looked back to see that Nick wasn't here and urged Ennis to leave. Ennis didn't think so and thought Morgan was threatening him. While they were talking, Nick also saw the murderer of his mother. He placed the hammer behind him. Ennis noticed Nick approaching and was surprised to see that Nick was still alive.
Walk away. I said, walk away.
You should listen to your friend.
Nick's emotions were exceptionally intense at this moment. Morgan, knowing he couldn't change others, left the scene. Nick walked in and began furiously smashing the enemy in front of him with the hammer. Formerly hesitant about killing, Nick now preferred to become a demon and tear apart this scoundrel. Morgan, who had already walked away, stopped and decided to return to prevent this tragedy. Nick and Ennis fought fiercely, with Nick even pushed to the brink. It was at this moment that deer antlers directly pierced through Ennis's chest.
Wait.
Ennis died this way. When Morgan came back, Nick came out with blood on his hands. Morgan could only once again impart a lesson to Nick. Morgan gave Nick a book, telling him that all life is precious. Morgan chose to leave again. Just as he was about to leave the town, he coincidentally met Alicia and the others rushing in. Nick read several pages of the book, then put it inside his trouser pocket. He touched a small blue flower. Then he sat on the doorstep and looked at the flower. Maybe his mother was watching him. A sudden pain struck. In the distance is the little girl Charlie.
Charlie.
Upon hearing gunshots, the others hurried over.
Hey!
Come on, Nick.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Look at me.
Come on.
Hey.
This scene is a bit sentimental. Nick's death once again left Alicia bereft of a family member, causing her to completely collapse. In this world, she was now alone, and the seeds of hatred were buried deep in the hearts of all three of them.